I think that what a lot of people are struggling with here is that, you were an MIT physics major.
Yep.
You are, by all accounts, a very smart guy. How is it possible that you overlooked this more than $5 billion problem?
I ask myself a lot how I made a series of mistakes that they don't just seem dumb. They seem like the type of mistakes I could see myself having ridiculed someone else for having made. The kind of mistakes that I would have considered myself to have been above.
As we've learned about what happened over the past few weeks, we've learned that there were some issues involving where customer funds were put for FTX and some accounting issues. Can you walk us through what the problem was on that side?
Right, you rewind to 2019, 2020, FTX didn't have bank accounts. And that was because as a global crypto exchange at the time, almost none of them were able to get, global banking. Some customers still wanted to onboard fiat currencies though. FTX was maintaining cryptocurrency wallets, but not banking accounts. And so some of them would wire money to Alameda and then ask to be credited on their FTX account.
How much of this customer money was wired to the Alameda bank accounts?
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but my estimation is I think more than half.
More than half?
More than half of Alameda's total position came via that method.
So how many billions of dollars are we talking about, at least ballpark?
I think north of 5.
And so this was actual US dollars that customers transferred to Alameda bank accounts, and they were credited for it on FTX.
Yeah, that's right.
So more than $5 billion were transferred into these Alameda bank accounts.
Yep.
It was then credited so that customers saw that they had that balance on their screens.
Yep.
What actually happened to the dollars sitting in those bank accounts?
One phrasing of it one could use would be to say that Alameda effectively sent those dollars from its FTX account to the user, but that's a ledger transfer, of course. Outside of that, the answer is they were wired to Alameda. I can only speculate about what happened after that.
So you don't know what happened to those $5 billion?
They were wired to Alameda. I wasn't running Alameda, but I can now go back and take a guess at where they were ultimately spent or used or something. But dollars are fungible with each other. And so it's not like this $1 bill over here that you can trace through from start to finish. What you get is more just omnibus pots of assets of various forms.
Was there double counting going on?
There was not double counting from FTX's financials. FTX's financials were correctly, effectively debiting this amount from total customer balances on FTX.
So let's say Bob wires $100 to one of these Alameda bank accounts. Mm-hmm. Bob checks his FTX screen. FTX has credited his account. It says he's got $100.
Yep.
But behind the scenes, Alameda goes and does something with that money.
Yeah. Alameda has -1. Was it $100 that?
$100.
Yeah. Alameda then should have -$100 on FTX, right? Because effectively, or at least that would be one way to mechanic this, right? Would be Bob sends to Alameda over here off of FTX through a wire transfer. Then on FTX, Alameda sends to Bob. But the whole key there is you need to keep track of that negative Alameda piece, of the fact that Alameda is crediting other people, thus that should be debiting from the funds that they have on FTX.
So this problem developed in which more than $5 billion of user funds was sent to Alameda, and it was not properly seen in the systems. It made Alameda's position seem much
less large than it was.
You only became aware at the beginning of November?
I don't remember the exact date, but it is somewhere around there, yeah. I was surprised at what happened when you added those numbers together. I don't know exactly when that notional became so large, that wire transfer piece. I think it was surprisingly recently, given that it was, because this was a sort of legacy system right? We transitioned away from this system over time, but I think that some people just kept wiring to Alameda anyway. Even after we had built out our own payment networks and removed any traces of that old pathway. And so I think it was maybe surprisingly recently that a lot of that happened as well.
Was Alameda using this money that came in to that account as part of its collateral on FTX?
Not to my knowledge, but I'm not sure.
But that is possible that was how it was being used?
I don't know what they did with which pieces of assets. And given that dollars are fungible with each other at the end of the day, I'm not sure it's even well defined to talk about whether it was those dollars or other dollars that were sent somewhere.
But if a dollar went in
Yep.
to one of those Alameda
Yep.
bank accounts,
Yep.
then it would have become part of the customer's margin position and part of Alameda's margin position.
It would have, if it had gone to an Alameda bank account, then it would become part of the customer's collateral on FTX, right? And it would have increased Alameda's margin position on FTX effectively.
I wanted to ask about the FTX terms of use.
Yep.
They say that you control the digital assets held in your account. They can't be loaned out, except there's also another part of the terms of use that talk about margin trading, in which there is actually language that says your money could be loaned out
Right.
and it could disappear if somebody's trade
Right.
goes bad. On FTX, did you have to opt in to do margin trading?
So for the peer-to-peer borrowed lending order book, you did, yes.
How many people and how much money was actually in that?
I don't know exactly off the top of my head. I think it was, I want to say $8 or $10 billion at the peak. I don't know what it is today.
Were you sweeping people into margin trading and allowing their collateral to be loaned out?
I honestly, off the top of my head, I don't know exactly what procedures we used to determine whether an account was, doing margin trading. Or I do remember, a way that people could have opted into it, but I don't know off the top of my head.
Was there a violation of the terms of use?
I don't know of a violation of the terms of use. I don't know every line of the terms of use. I can't confidently say there wasn't, but I don't know of one.
In some of the court filings, the new head of FTX has said that there was a secret exemption for Alameda from the normal auto liquidation protocols, which some people have called a backdoor.
Right.
Can you tell us about this secret exemption?
I don't know exactly what was being referred to there. That has not been communicated to me beyond the public statements, nor was I consulted or asked on that. So I can only speculate about what was being referred to there. My guess is that that may have been referring to wires sent to Alameda. I'm not sure. I can't speculate on exactly what he was referring to there.
But could Alameda be auto liquidated like any other customer?
I don't, again, have access to all of this right now. I believe that there was a system in place that I think Alameda and some other accounts were using, which did have some liquidation policies, but which were specific for larger positions. I actually don't know the details of that. These were things that I think like account managers and legal were working out together over the last year, and I was not deeply involved in that process. I do think that the larger accounts did have some amount of extra margin capacity in some cases.
So Alameda could take on riskier trades than other FTX customers?
I'm not sure, but I think there may have been cases where at least it could take on larger positions.
How is it that as a 90% owner of the firm and founder of the firm who was close with the leadership, you didn't know what was going on?
The thing is, I was busy. FTX was a full-time job. I was more than a full-time job. And I didn't have enough brain cycles left to understand everything going on at Alameda if I wanted to. I also didn't want to because I was concerned about conflicts of interest. And I felt like it would be inappropriate for me to be, looped into, certainly to details of what was going on there. It caused me to not dig in very much, to not try to engage very much on what Alameda was doing. It was a huge oversight, obviously. But the honest answer is, obviously I should have been.
Sam, what you've described sounds, at a minimum, like gross negligence. Obviously, there are a lot of people there who think that you committed outright fraud. Do you expect to go to prison?
I'm not focusing on that right now. I don't think I tried to commit fraud anywhere here. I was trying to do the best I could. Obviously, that wasn't nearly as good as I thought it was. But honestly, it's not what I'm focusing on right now. This is about the customers at the end of the day. There's one of me, there are millions of them. And I don't think it's right for me to be focusing on what happens to me here. I think I should be focusing on what can be done for customers.